You got all the cards.
Well, that's correct. But I can't fault you for trying. Do we have an agreement?
Agreed.
Opens with a tense, high-stakes robbery. Bumpy Johnson and his trusted associates, Del Chance and Nat Pettigrew, intercept an armored vehicle transporting a significant sum of cash. The heist turns violent. A security guard draws his weapon, forcing Bumpy's crew to shoot, and kills the guard. This bold move is unlike Bumpy, signaling his desperation. 2 days earlier, in the aftermath of the Harlem riots, the neighborhood is in disarray. Bumpy faces a pressing challenge, repaying a $3 million debt to the 5 families. With Vincent Chin Gigante incarcerated, Joe Columbo has risen in the ranks and now oversees Bumpy's debt. Columbo, seeking to solidify his position, proposes a partnership with Bumpy, expecting him to accept due to the looming debt. However, Bumpy refuses, unwilling to relinquish control over Harlem. Facing limited options, Bumpy attempts to secure a loan from the Liberty Bank of Harlem. Despite his connections, the bank denies his request, citing an existing $500,000 debt. Efforts to gather funds from street operations yield minimal results. Mamie, Bumpy's wife, offers to sell her jewelry to help, but Bumpy declines, not wanting to involve her in his financial woes. During a conversation with Congressman Adam Clayton Powell Jr., Bumpy learns about a substantial federal grant intended for Harlem's redevelopment, which is to be deposited at the Liberty Bank. Recognizing an opportunity, Bumpy orchestrates the heist depicted in the opening scene, targeting the armored vehicle carrying the grant money. After Bumpy pays back the Italians, Joe did not have any leverage over Bumpy. After Bumpy pays back the Italians, Joe did not have any leverage over Bumpy. So, he decided to kidnap Bumpy's wife, Mamie Johnson, though he frames it as a gentlemanly kind of kidnapping. One of Joe's men approaches Mamie and says his boss would like to have a word with her. When Mamie refused, the man insists and block her way, so Mamie had no choice but to enter Joe's car. He offers Mamie a glass of wine and tries to make her feel comfortable. Joe reiterates the pitch he made to Bumpy last episode. Columbo's legitimate auto business is generating serious cash, and he's offering Bumpy a piece of the pie. It comes with the added promise of legal protection, thanks to Joe's corrupt network of cops and judges. Mamie listens intently, weighing not just the offer, but the implications. When Mamie returns and recounts her encounter with Joe, Bumpy Johnson is furious. The thought of the Italians getting this close to his family is beyond unacceptable. Bumpy goes to the representative of the Italian. He makes it known that if Joe isn't dealt with soon, he'll kill the man himself. Mamie, ever the political tactician, begins to piece things together. Last episode, Bumpy stole relief funds that were supposed to help Harlem rebuild after the riots. Only a handful of people knew about it, meaning Bumpy must be the culprit. Meanwhile, Stella Gigante, the estranged daughter of Chin Gigante, has found solace in the home of Delia Green, mother of her late ex-boyfriend Teddy. Delia treats Stella with warmth and kindness, even offering her enough money for a one-way ticket to Paris, and a chance for Stella to start over. Joe Columbo sends men to retrieve Stella, another gentlemanly kidnapping in the same episode. Back in Bumpy's world, 2 of his men are found murdered by some Italian-looking motherfuckers, as it's so eloquently put, and dumped outside his place of business. Rather than mourn quietly, Bumpy doubles down. He starts making examples of anyone who's even considering defecting to Joe. He shanks his own crew members, sending a clear message: loyalty isn't optional. You're either with Bumpy or you're dead. With options dwindling, Bumpy meets with Jose Battle, the boss of Spanish Harlem and a devout Cuban revolutionary. Battle is a wild card. He's not interested in heroin but controls Harlem's access to military-grade weapons. He agrees to a sit-down, but here's the twist. Battle doesn't make business decisions without consulting the Orishas, spiritual deities in Santeria. Through seashell divination, his soothsayer advises against the deal. Bumpy is visibly baffled but plays along. Later, Joe pays a visit to Jose Battle himself, asking, politely, whether he accepted Bumpy's offer. He may have said no to Bumpy at first, but Joe Columbo's arrogance lights a fuse. The climax of the episode unfolds in a private meeting with the 5 families. Joe Columbo's offer? A mere 25% stake for Bumpy. Bumpy flatly refuses the offer. He declares that after having tasted freedom, he won't go back to chains. He likens himself to a lion that can only understand its own strength once it's escaped captivity. Battle requests a favor from Bumpy to assassinate a purported Castro loyalist who executed Battle's family in Cuba. It has been discovered that the intended victim is a journalist who has been exposing the CIA gun conduit, which is the true source of Battle's armaments. Bumpy proceeds with the plan. However, it is evident that he is apprehensive about being inadvertently implicated in CIA affairs. In the interim, Columbo persists in his efforts to win over Chin by safeguarding Stella. However, his conduct is beginning to appear inconsistent. He provides her with a job and a residence, compliments her appearance, and even takes her out to dinner. Malcolm X travels to Mecca for Hajj, but he is detained due to a lack of appropriate religious documentation. Dr. Omar Azam, a compassionate Caucasian Muslim, takes him in while he awaits a ruling, forcing him to confront his own prejudice, a critical juncture in his real-life transformation. Mamie Johnson is gathering momentum at Harriu, but the DA is suspicious that Bumpy's corrupt money is financing the initiative, which is why she is facing criticism. She resigns in order to safeguard Harriu. Captain Reggie Fields assumes responsibility for the 27th Precinct. Columbo perceives it as a political maneuver. Fields refuses to intervene when 2 police officers on Columbo's retainer gun up his club, which is particularly concerning to Bumpy. Bumpy discovers that Columbo murdered a captain who assisted him. Consequently, he abducts and subjects the police to torture in order to compel them to make confessions. It was discovered that Fields was also receiving settlement money. Bumpy presents him with the evidence and informs him, "You are now employed by me." Stella nearly sets Columbo up for ADA Pike, but she withdraws after witnessing his isolated, vulnerable nature. Malcolm X, who is currently in Egypt, is encouraged to advocate for global liberation after meeting Che Guevara. He is likely poisoned by the CIA, yet he nonetheless manages to attend the Pan-African Conference and deliver a compelling speech. The episode concludes with Monsieur 98's arrival in the United States. Malcolm X has returned to Harlem, but the situation remains fraught. He and his family are receiving suicide threats. Monsieur 98 accepts Bumpy's offer and assists with the shipment arrangements. However, he remains intrigued by Joe Columbo's culinary creations and thus consults him. Joe approaches Bumpy at a cafe, with Monsieur's head in a sack. Joe endeavors to persuade Stella to purchase a family necklace. However, she declines. She desires to depart. He initially assures her that he will investigate the matter. However, he then follows up with, "Actually, that is not going to happen." Neither of them is effectively managing the situation. Omar inquires Elise about the possibility of joining Malcolm X's crew. Bumpy attempts to recruit the police captain for one final theft. However, the captain responds, "Nah, I'm out," and resigns. Joe is becoming increasingly apprehensive. What is the reason that Bumpy has not yet requested to purchase from him? In the interim, one of Bumpy's men is conducting a solitary mission, attempting to establish a cocaine-related secondary business. Bumpy has officially retired from the narcotic industry, and his wife is thrilled. She is considering the possibility of one of his extermination companies securing a federal contract. Joe approaches Jose Battle with substantial financial incentives. However, Battle remains steadfast. Bumpy is not being snagged by him. Bumpy decides to participate in the cocaine trade and contacts Battle to leverage his CIA connections. Battle performs his minor seashell maneuvers, and everything proceeds smoothly. Joe is essentially stalking Stella, and she hires a counsel to inform her father. Pops is incensed and desires Joe's removal, requests that Lombardi address the matter. Battle arranges a rendezvous with his CIA associate, Wild Bill Harvey. In exchange for the cocaine, the CIA desires information regarding Malcolm X. Malcolm is informed by Bumpy that the CIA intends to assassinate him. Mongoose. In the interim, Lombardi is on the brink of killing Joe. Instead, Stella delivers Lombardi in a narrative twist. Bumpy finally refuses to tell on his comrade. Wild Bill is ridiculed for his failure to eliminate Castro. The Cos is still carried away. Bumpy and Battle are conducting their Cos enterprise efficiently, until the FBI apprehends Battle for money laundering. The CIA is causing suspicion among the public that Bumpy has an informant in his crew. Bumpy's like, I don't know, maybe? In the interim, the United Nations grants Malcolm X permission to deliver his significant speech. Additionally, Elijah Muhammad is directly inciting animosity toward Malcolm. Joe persists in his efforts to eliminate the tattooed target on his back. He subjected the Council of Chin to torture. They then take Stella to her stepmother's to determine who attempted to murder her. Once Joe obtains the information, he employs it to garner the backing of other families in their opposition to Chin. Bumpy instructs his attorney to plunge the community before it becomes chaotic. However, in a plot reversal, a covert federal agent and Battle's crew eliminate him. Joe provides Stella with a first-class ticket to Paris, but he also asks her to remain and assist with mob-related matters. She responds, yes. Wild Bill manipulates the system to secure Jose Battle's release from prison. Omar discovers a device in Malcolm's office and informs him that the nation is preparing a terrorist attack. Bumpy eventually realizes that there is no spy. However, there is a mole. Bill murders him, and upon realizing that they are pursuing Malcolm, he severs all connections with both of them. Malcolm requests that Bumpy remove his security. He has now been granted security by the United Nations. In the interim, the CIA is preparing to eliminate both Malcolm X and Che Guevara. Bumpy meets with Battle and then approaches Che and Malcolm, stating, "Hey, guys, you better be careful. The CIA is on their way." Bumpy dispatches one of his men to Wild Bill with a slight threat. He also observes a number of long-range missiles while he is in the area. Then, Bumpy prevents Malcolm from traveling to the United Nations and instructs his men to eliminate the assassins. Chin Jigani has been released from prison. The FBI made an error regarding a technicality. What is his initial desire? Seated with Estella. In the interim, an individual detonates a device in Malcolm X's residence. He and his daughters are fortunate to survive. Bumpy implores Malcolm to allow his men to safeguard him. However, Malcolm has exhausted himself by sprinting. He explicitly states, "I am a dead man walking, and I am fine with it if it is for my people." Stella presents Chin with the shocking revelation that his wife was the one who attempted to assassinate her. Bumpy identifies Malcolm's perpetrator. Battle contacts Joe, proposing that they work together to transport coke. Subsequently, Tommy Lucchese informs Chin that, indeed, he executed a hit on Stella, but it was solely at the request of Chin's wife. What was Chin's response? Cut off his digits. Wild Bill wants Bumpy to continue managing the coke business. Wild Bill abducts Elise and, in the knowledge that she is a recovering addict, administers heroin to her due to his malevolent nature. Chin extends an invitation to Bumpy to participate in the subsequent opium shipment. Bumpy's response is, "I'm out." Bumpy subjected Clyde to torture and discovered that Wild Bill was responsible for the Malcolm attack. Joe receives complete backing during the Mafia family meeting. This situation arose due to Wild Bill's CIA-supplied narcotics and firearms. Chin is approached by Bumpy, who urges him to reclaim Harlem after witnessing Elise in that state. Upon approaching Wild Bill, Bumpy tenders his apologies and requests that he exclude his daughter from the encounter. In the interim, Chin consents to the use of his territory for coke shipments as proposed by Joe and Jose. Bumpy discloses all information during his meeting with the FBI. To finance a second invasion of Cuba, the CIA is selling coke. Additionally, the CIA is heavily involved in narcotics and firearms trafficking. This is entirely due to Wild Bill Harvey. Malcolm X is scheduled to deliver a speech at the Audubon Ballroom. He is not postponing, despite the numerous warnings. As Omar converses with Johnson's associates, he delivers an enormous revelation. He asserts that no one will be subjected to a pat-down prior to entering the event. Johnson's men are apprehended prior to reaching the building on the day of the speech. Two individuals simulate an altercation. In order to induce hysteria, an individual ignites a cloth. Then, three individuals make their way to the stage and fatally gunshot Malcolm X. Betty and her daughters are situated in the front row, where they are observing the proceedings. She rushes to his aid, but it is too late. He has vanished. Stella, in the interim, elects to flee and issues one final warning to Joe. However, he proves unresponsive. Bumpy negotiates immunity for himself and Chin with the FBI. However, Wild Bill threatens to murder their daughters upon discovering the information, so they throw him off the freaking building. Chin assures Stella that he will not interfere with Joe and even invites her to remain and collaborate with him. Yes, she is participating. Joe has finally received his cargo of cocaine. However, the conflict is perplexing. Where is Wild Bill? Suddenly, Chin and Bumpy arrive and inform them that Wild Bill was collaborating with the federal government. The FBI arrives and apprehends all individuals. Bumpy nonchalantly informs the investigators, "Yeah, Wild Bill lost his balance and fell." The news of Malcolm's demise is then received with great shock by Bumpy. He observes his physical appearance and assures him, "I will one day become the man you desired. I will exact my retribution, regardless of the cost." Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.